Um,
Nice. I hear.
Hi, man.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good. So just for the record, we've been talking a few minutes before, and we just forgot, or I forgot to push the record button. So it's a habit in the European Cardano community. We do that sometimes with Twitter Spaces, so, and then we have to recover them. So that's all cool. You got to keep to the traditions. So thank you for being here. First
No
of all.
problem. Thanks for
Um,
having me.
Thank you for making everything so spontaneous and helping me out with the Twitter space tomorrow to understand everything. And you're working for and with Disco Solaris as
Yes.
community manager. Is that the
I, yeah, I mean, we roughly, I mean, there's someone else who called Madcap who I guess is more officially a community manager. Um, my role is more like I just refer to it as the voice of. So while I do a lot of community management things, much of my role involves things like this, right? Speaking to people, trying my best to just give a voice to Disco Solaris, help explain things with a person directly behind it to give back and forths, interviews, spaces and so on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we've seen you at the CNFT town hall that we once had, and you already described a lot in there. And for everybody who's watching this, you gotta visit the Discord server. How would you describe Disco Solaris for somebody in a nutshell who is not familiar with the metaverse or blockchain?
Okay. So we go by like the kind of tagline that Disco Solaris is a decentralized, narrative-driven universe. So effectively, what that means is just that like ourselves as the core team alongside our community, we kind of think of this narrative universe where our characters have left Earth to start a new life on a new planet in a city called Neo Miami. And so effectively, between us all, we're collectively creating this narrative of like just like a new life and and a fresh start and all of the things that come on with that. And some of it, it does like blur the lines between reality and fiction. People create things which kind of exist on a narrative level, but also in real life. For example, there may be a radio station which, you or I could listen to right now, and you might have people doing live shows or podcasts and so on. But that is also like a fictional radio station existing in a fictional world. And yeah, we just kind of go from there. And I'd say the forefront of it all is just, having fun and experiencing escapism on your own terms. Some people they've decided to create and kind of bootstrap and just send off like the beginnings of an economy for Disco Solaris and provide a token for that and so on. And that is something that as a team we support as much as we want. But not everyone will want to or has to get involved with each of these elements. You really whatever you do on your own terms, you can interact with Disco Solaris.
I think that's something that is really hard to understand, or at least for somebody like me, who's I mean I passed the 40s now, and we were taught always like, okay, you have to obey some terms or things like that, and now people are entering a metaverse and or a narrative, and you get told you can do whatever you want. But how like sounds like stupid, but how do I do whatever I want in a community without distracting people? Or so do I just start off and ask myself around, or because when I say, hey, can I do that? Then people say, don't ask for permission, just do it. I like how do you approach things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, right? Like, I guess it sounds really simple and easy to say, just do it, right? But you know, especially coming from like the previous world of like how we've entertained ourselves and involved in communities, like often there's been more of a one-way direction of things, except maybe with like video games, but even then you're working with often quite like a strict set of parameters.
Mhm.
So I'd say just the simplest way of involving yourself is just meet people in the community. You can always just observe if you want. Look on Twitter. You can join a Discord. You can look at videos such as this, and you'll like just through that kind of involvement in the immersion, you'll realize and hopefully like gain some ideas on like how you are comfortable with immersing yourself in these kinds of things. And it is quite daunting at first. Like, I imagine like if I listen to this back and hear myself describing Disco Solaris, it's going to be like, whoa, that's a lot. But you can take it on whichever element you want to. If there's someone in the community who is involved with it, you can speak to them. If not, then you can reach out to anyone such as myself, or just come into a Discord, or find someone on Twitter. And I think it's something where like it's a network effect, right? It's person to person is how something like this spreads, because so much of it is a social experience, even though much of it occurs through the internet.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen one thing in the Discord of Disco Solaris. By the way, the website is discosolaris.com, and there you
Mhm.
find the way to the Discord. If there was somebody who said like you just said, I've been away for quite a while. Can you fill me in? And then you just made a little rundown. So as a new user, you just have to lose the fear to ask, hey, to ask the stupid question. I didn't read everything. Could you help me? Is that all right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the elements to it that does make it quite fast paced and changed, and is that everyone is making content, and so like even if myself and any of my colleagues didn't produce anything, that doesn't mean that Disco Solaris isn't progressing in a way. And
Mhm.
that does make it kind of difficult, if you've not been keeping up and so on. But you don't have to know everything, right? Some people may only want to kind of take part on like the kind of the economic or the government side. Some people may just want to involve themselves with other people in the community. Some people may want to just like read or write stories and so on. And there's no right or wrong way with interacting with any of it, right? And I think that's something that I'd always try and get across to people, is like what you want to get from Disco Solaris is, that's fine. You don't have to go beyond that. Maybe you'll get doors opened up to you because of that. Personally, to me, um, I've always been, like gamified aspects, fiction, and just the community have always been like things that have drawn me more to these kind of communities. But just through like the way I've integrated, I mean, I've learned about like the European Town Hall. I've learned about more specific things related to blockchain governance, or decentralization of blockchain and stake pools and so on. All of things which to others they may like how they might be the core of their interaction with Web3, but to me they weren't at first, and so you can broaden your horizons after like dipping your toes in whichever aspect suits you.
Okay, cool. So if I would have an idea, I just create a website and associate it to Disco Solaris. Then that's basically like what happened with the radio, for example, or is it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guy who made the radio, he did reach out to us at first, just to like, and then, but there's no need to at all. It was just like, we were like, oh, what can we do to support you? And he was like, what can I do to support you? And it became like a mutualistic relationship. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they start out by, they may make a Twitter, because it's just simple. You can make it. There's no cost involved. It's instant. And then from there, especially because so much of like the NFT and Web3 communities involve themselves through Twitter, you can just get the followers, reach out to people, and get in with there. It's kind of like a low stakes aspect. There are people obviously who have made their own websites, and I'd fully encourage that. But that levels the playing field and makes it a bit less of a task to do so, because I find, as with anything, right, just if you lower the barrier, then it means it's more likely to get done, and then you can always build from there if you want.
Yeah, that's true. I think people are I would be used to it to say, okay, do I infringe some property rights or so associated with the project? That's for example, that would be mine, where I'd say, okay, could I just use my NFT on the website that I own, thanks to Disco Solaris and Quasar, and who all initiated that. So I use that and I create my own graphics, and then I put up a story, for example. And that's why I would say, okay, is that okay? Is that okay with the community, or would the community bash me for that?
I'd assume the community would be, fully supportive and encouraging of that. Like if you have this NFT, right, that is all, you also do whatever you want with commercially, or you can adapt it or anything. You can build these stories around it within our universe, or within like a alternate universe or whatever. It's all for you. And I know for a fact there are like lots of people in the community that, when people have done these things and created these narratives and so on, that people have like followed along, or they've released it in like chapters that people are like talking about it, and like when's the next one coming and so on. And that is just amazing to see, like this feedback loop of creativity that happens within the community is so cool. And there's something that happened not super recently but fairly recently where it's kind of like the culmination of this like long chain of events where early on, not long after release, there was a person in the community who they were collecting these NFTs of where the characters didn't have any clothes on, right? And then it became a bit of a joke, and then they said like, oh, I'm making a nightclub. And then they created this whole story, and they even had a Discord. There was like a 3D space you could like enter through your browser and hang out. And then this kind of gained a life of its own. They have kind of their own sub community now. And then part of our project, we have a musician who's part of our core team, Julie Marcel, also known as a like Amber VHS, which is her like alias in the world. And she collaborated with Nido, who is another member of our community who's quite prominent in Cardano, does lots of synthwave music, and they made a song together. But it's quite long-winded. But the kind of lyrical composition of this song takes place within the Oculus Lounge, which is the nightclub, kind of created by this member. So you've had this full feedback where the collections come out just from the art. Someone was inspired to not just make one story, but make like the story of like 20 characters and the nightclub that they work in, to then like feedback to the team and another member of the community making a song which takes place in that nightclub kind of. And I love that kind of where it's just taking a life on its own. If you think back to a year ago before we minted, none of those steps are even possible to imagine, because it was like the chance of just this art being out and kind of inspiring someone to even bring that upon itself. And there's been elements where just like people bouncing off each other and working together, and to me that is like it's just incredible. I can't put into words how amazing it is to kind of see that whole thing and experience it all in like real time. Yeah.
When I talked with my wife about it, I said, okay, there's this metaverse which is kind of different, because the easiest way I try to explain it to her is like the Star Wars saga, where you have those characters, and now little by little Disney is creating series for every character, and you can do that in Disco Solaris so easily. You just can create a story, and then somebody else picks up a character and goes deeper. And how would that work? That would be the way how I imagine it would be like there would be a link in the story, and that says, okay, here's Disco Fat, and now you click him, and then you have the whole storyline of him and having his adventures or his whole there. And I think that's absolutely fascinating, because that can get really, really big.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Star Wars analogy, because it's something that we, there's no one, I imagine, who doesn't get some idea what you're talking about. And so if ever had to explain, Disco to someone who, had no involvement with any blockchain, it may just be like, imagine it's like the Star Wars, but rather than like George Lucas making it, like we're all making it together. Yeah. And that is something that I think is very relatable and kind of captures you a bit, because you don't, there's no like prior knowledge or technology or anything that you need to understand. You don't even have to worry about the physical aspects of like NFTs and wallet and ownership. It's like the idea itself can capture someone and before anything else, and I think that's amazing. And one thing you did say, about like the way the story works is something that is really fun to me anyway, is that we developed a tool that we call the story index, where you load up your wallet, it sees what NFTs are there, and then it loads them up, and you can then choose your NFTs which to add stories to, and then they would all be in one place. And that kind of, and you can add images, you can add web links, you can all these things in one place for each of the NFTs. And then one thing that I find is quite fascinating is if you were to pass that NFT on to someone else, or sell in the market or trade it, or however it ends up into a different wallet, it doesn't really matter. The stories that are there and the text or the web links or whatever you want to attach to that, they stay in the system with it. So then this NFT may have like a history, this character may have like a past life that pre-exists before you've got it, and then obviously you can build on top of that if you want, and and so like you can how I imagine it is they may become like infamous or famous like characters that then may have an extra social value and perception based off what people know of their stories, and then you could not only take ownership of that character but of the kind of story itself if you so wish.
But you have to be really tough to let go of a character that has been.
Oh yeah, I mean,
right?
yeah, I mean that's. I'm sure it is difficult, but I think just the option of it being there is very interesting. Having. Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't want to give up any of the things that I've invested that kind of emotional and creative energy into, but maybe one day that you may just feel like someone else may be a better caretaker of that, or nowadays when you think of like comic books and so on, these characters persist, but they've come through different phases with different authors, and maybe it would become like almost like a rite of passage to like pass on the character like more efficiently than just this person's working out at this time and so on. So these are things that like I've probably spent a bit too much time thinking about, but it just really excites me.
I think there's not too much thinking of it. I mean,
yeah,
it just leads to new ideas, and so I think that's cool. So, is it limited to those 5,777 people then, or is there more? I've seen you've mentioned the nude collection. Then I saw there were earrings just lasting now. Then there's coats, there's everything in there.
So currently there's just the 5777 like the core NFTs, which would link into that. We are working on the second season, which links in with the earrings you mentioned. But for example, the nakeds and the kind of certain coats and certain attributes, they're just characters within the 777 that happen to have be wearing a certain outfit that sometimes people may kind of just maybe they create their own like idea around, or there is this kind of like a story around, and there's like certain elements within the collection that people have kind of almost created like sub communities for, which is quite interesting. But then, sorry, I just had like a notification. Anyway, okay,
cool.
Reset, cool. So yeah, but there will be, there will be obviously more in future. It's just we are in like the developmental stage of that. We do expect it to be in like Q1 of this year, but there's quite a lot going on. There's lots of art production, and because of a specific element of it, which quite a lot of people are privy to, because of the nature where as it's a core team. Collaborating with the group who refer to themselves as the JR Cartel, to make this kind of this new collection come to life in a way that is hopefully quite novel and unique. I think so, at least. So that means there are elements to it that are quite public, because it's such a collaborative effort between various groups to bring it to life.
Mm-hmm. And who are the main characters of the core team? You've been mentioning that now, to follow, to keep the most updates, or to see like, okay, what do the founders of the project do?
Yeah, so
like,
I guess
their hands probably is
yeah. the Twitter handles that are probably the most kind of apt to follow. I'm trying to remember apps off the top of myself. Badger Salesman is my handle. The kind of main visionary co-founder is, I think it's the Real Dot, so he goes by Mr. Dot. He's one of the co-founders, and the other one would be Amber VHS, so she's the musician, and also we have Madcap, who is mostly the community manager. I'd say they're the most like kind of active kind of Twitter handles you can follow along things through, and obviously the core account in itself, at Disco Solaris. What is quite interesting is that Mr. Dot, the Real Dot, Mr. Dot is the name of a character in the universe, so there is like this kind of constant blurring of the lines of like he has this obviously persona in this universe, which kind of his interface with the community. And this is a real person, people met at CNFTCon, and at the time he wasn't the persona, but there is an art of Mr. Dot in the collection that he has that is also like in the world the leader of this corporation, or one of the leaders of Dimbo Dot, which is kind of and that's also the registered company which owns Disco Solaris in Poland. So there's all of these like elements which like have the that blurring of the reality, right? Like the corporation which created the city in the world is Dim Blue Dot, and the corporation which created the NFT project in the real world is Dim Blue Dot, and so on. So the core of this whole thing is kind of this reality fiction,
that's cool.
And this thin line somewhere in between that we maybe we move at certain points.
I think that's really cool, because that's actually one of the things that I see with Disco Solaris, is that you can use it exactly for that, for extrapolating your company vision. And we've been thinking of that for our project, to say, okay, where do we see ourselves in X years? What happens if we have to leave the world, or if we want to leave the world, if we're able to leave the world? What happens if pollution increases so much that you can't live there? How sustainable would be the thing that you are creating? Or and you can do that with all sort of kinds. And so it's pretty cool that you have exactly that dot company, and that you have it in real life. I like that a lot. Will there be a 2D, 3D metaverse in like you have it from other projects, or is that something that is not being planned or on the roadmap?
Yeah, that's not something that we necessarily intend to do, right? I see the metaverse as like, the metaverse is what you make of it, right? So like we see it as like a narrative metaverse that's more existing like conceptually than what people like Sandbox, Pavia, Virtua, and so on are looking to do. So we have in the past made collaborations. One of them, like probably one of the most notable ones, is a partnership with Virtua. And then once their product is more out there, we're going to work with them to have a hub for Disco Solaris within theirs. We've also had a similar thing with Metadams, and so we don't really see the point in like, oh, how we're trying to compete and make something competing with this huge corporation that might have like 1,000 staff or hundreds of developers. It'd be much more efficient to work alongside them and create something within those, if people do want to have that kind of that virtual Disco Solaris experience. But saying that, there's already been people in the community who have made like 3D virtual hangouts that you could go to right now. As mentioned, obviously there was the Oculus Lounge one. There's a guy in the community that we just call the Builder now. It's been so long that I can't even remember what his old handle was. He just became known as the Builder in the community. And this guy, using just like platforms where you can use their tooling to make like 3D like virtual hangouts, has produced like a handful of them now with people where you can go and you're in this building, and one of them may be like just like Disco Solaris themed, where there's lots of profile pictures and you can learn a bit about the story and it'll send you links to others. Our other one is just like a big, more of like a social space where you can like watch a movie together and make your avatar dance and talk to people and so on. And these are things that have just been like decentralized, made by the community, right? So I think in a way, like we already are there. If people want to make those things, they can do, and we'll fully support that. But we're not gonna try to make a metaverse in the sense that people think of like a kind of like the Second Life kind of aspect.
Mhm.
We are wanting to make and we are developing this, a representation of the city of Neo Miami, which will be interactive in some form, but we don't expect it to be, and we don't plan for it to be something that you're going to be like walking around. We just want it to be kind of like a hub element, which kind of provides that visual representation of the city and different buildings, and may have links to certain places, and maybe like gamified or quest aspect, but not a the Facebook Mark Zuckerberg metaverse kind of thing, if that makes sense.
It's kind of, yeah, totally. It's kind of a book with audio elements and some visual elements, but not like a TV or like a video game. So you still have enough space to imagine the rest. And you have the interactivity with the community, where you have like something like Pavia, for example, you strictly play and you run around,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have space for more imagination. If I got this right. And I like
Yeah,
that.
I think one could say that like every if people want it to be like that, everything is play if they want it to be in the sense, like why else would people like turn up to these events or join a Twitter space, or there's the community hosts once every 2 weeks in their own community ran server, a town hall where people come and they talk about things within the project, especially things which the community themselves are working on, such as Discoin and certain aspects to that, right? And I go and take part like as on a peer within the community, right? Rather than like a member of a core team. I just turn up and talk to people as I would like anyone else. And why would they, if they weren't enjoying it and in a sense playing, right, like then they wouldn't be there at all. There's a prominent community member and figure who likes to use the phrase "the game is real," right? And I think that is quite a good encapsulation of like how some people perceive this. There's this, everything we do is, or they do in Disco Solaris, I guess in a sense is, it could be the game, but also there's this like this real component to it, and it's as real as you want it to be.
Yeah, it's like the old games of the 90s. I don't know if you know from Ubisoft, BAT. It was like I've just Googled it, and it was in, it was not even 1989. I got that one on my first.
It's a bit before my time. I'm aware of the
But
there's the mud games. They were like the multiplayer kind of text dungeons and so on. I'm not sure if it was something like that, right? Where
yeah,
okay,
but this one, it just basically was static, and you had only a few elements that were moving around, and the rest was imagination and text and a few images. And kind of, it reminds me a little bit of that, and because it's also retro, right? So
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. I mean, how I think it's kind of like a way that you could maybe conceptualize it would be like, it's this like huge multiplayer, version of like D&D or like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, whatever, where it's like, the rules and the universe and what is possible is there's not really a limit except like your imagination, and then people like imagine these things and bring them to life more than just a note on a sheet of paper. So that's really exciting of it.
Very cool. So what would you expect from the community? Like if you say there's 1,000 new people coming in, what would you expect them to do?
I just hope, just have fun, engage with each other, and it's a difficult one because I don't really have any expectations, because I've found whenever I've started to have any, they just kind of get blown away, if that makes sense. All these things that keep on occurring, like if you'd say, a year ago, oh, this will happen, like, you'll go to Las Vegas and meet a bunch of them and hang out and drink beer at the bar and not sleep because you just immersed in each other's company, or someone's going to make a radio station and people are going to host it, or someone's going to effectively, make a whole new economy with multi-sig kind of pools of funds to then try and create like a catalyst paralleling Cardano just for Disco Solaris. Like all these things I wouldn't even know where to begin like conceptualizing, and all of these things have happened or are very, very much in the works of happening, all of which have been made by the community for the community. So I don't think I can have expectations anymore. It's more just like the hope that people may come and share the vision, and I think that's something that tends to kind of bind members of the Disco Solaris community. It's this shared like ethos and vision where so many people just want to do things because maybe not because of like an external motive other than like just the wish to do it and do things with other people, and that's really special. So I just hope people come and involve themselves and chat and have fun in whatever way that they want, right? That's all I would hope. And yeah, like not be too daunted, I guess, would be a hope, because it is daunting, right? Trying to learn about it all, but just ask questions and everyone will try the best to help you there.
Yeah, that's what I figured out. This is a very friendly community for the few days I've been in there. I mean, especially you're an incredibly kind person.
Thank you.
Very, very helpful and always very approachable. So absolutely a great person to talk to. So I've seen also there's Discoins around, and I've been playing with it, and then there's the Silk Toad. What do both of them mean?
Okay, so Discoin kind of relates back to the group that I refer to as the JR cartel earlier. And the individuals Papo and Grancho. I'm not sure if that was before or after the recording started, apologies. But anyway, there's a group within the community who, they wanted to effectively make a fungible token for the community and for the world of Disco Solaris. And this is something that the team would have never been able to do. So, them doing that has been, a very interesting experiment, which has gone beyond being an experiment now. They probably have more developers, working with them than most NFT projects, and maybe certain other kinds of projects on Cardano. They've got a bunch of really talented, creatives, thinkers, developers, all, working and building systems, which is, why we as a team are working with them, on the next drop. And so they bought there's like a 1/1 like unique piece that is in the kind of homage of Charles within our universe. They bought that, and then they used Fracada, I believe the technology is called, to fractionalize this NFT into Discoin effectively. So each Discoin is a piece of this NFT of Charles. That in a in the fictional world where someone managed to accumulate all of the Discoin into one wallet, they would be able to retrieve Charles. And so effectively, anyone who owns Discoin kind of has the, they're allowed to use the Charles's pictures, likeness for whatever reason they want. And then they did crazy things, right? Like it got all of these funds are either.
What? Is he aware of it? Is he aware of it?
I mean, he must be aware of the existence of the image, but I'm not sure if he's aware of the craziness of the token. I mean, I know he knows about it. There was a neon sign version of this NFT creative, and I believe it's been sent to one of the IO offices that Charles works with that was taken after Rare Bloom, I believe. And I believe I definitely asked him about it when I met him briefly, but it was a whirlwind, and I'm sure he spoke to lots of people. So I'm not sure if he knows all the ins and outs. But yeah, what these guys did was amazing. They, purely out of their own, funding, right? They created these tokens, distributed them to everyone in the community who ordered Disco, got several airdrops. Now it's more on a claim basis, just so the community can, claim it either per epoch, or they can, let it accumulate a certain amount of time. And yeah, which it will be moving onto the Silk Toad, as far as I'm aware, quite soon. I've only learned that today, but I'm not sure the exact timing of that. They're like making the claims in-house rather than using a third-party system. But yeah, it's amazing. So all of the Discoin effectively is in multi-sig wallets, which I think there's like 3 or 4 pools of funds for different uses, and between them there's 20 different signees. I'm one of them for one of the pools, but there's different ones for different uses. Or it's allocated for future drops, or it's just in the community's hands. So there was no internal kind of bias towards any groups, no team kind of got any outside from the bits that are in, which moved into multi-sigs, and so no one person or entity can really control them. So I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing. Effectively a group from the community kind of just fractionalized this special NFT and made a token out of it, and there's no kind of bias to any group of how it works. And now they're doing amazing things for it. What? Sorry?
You need to send me the link later to the original image, if that's.
Oh yeah.
You
can get it up in the video,
I'm
right?
writing my little list on Discord, and then I send it to you, so that I can have the links then, and then we can share that with the community.
Yeah, of course. That's great.
So, but now I lost it. So no,
why is the Silk Toad?
It's my age. Losing it in my hair. So, no, that's incredible. That's really nice. Do you have to stake to a particular stake pool to receive those tokens, or is it just enough? That one. Or is it just enough to hold the NFT and
just the NFT, or you can kind of enter the ecosystem by, if you was to receive as a gift or trade or from a DEX Discoin, that itself also accumulates more Discoin. So I can't quote like the emission schedule directly off my head, but there's a split of like the funds between the NFTs and Discoin itself. You don't have to stake to any specific pools or anything, and just by holding either the NFT or Discoin makes you eligible to receive Discoin through rewards. At first it was just airdrop to the NFTs, and then after that and so I believe the schedule is that over time the rewards actually increase, which is so that's and I believe it would take over a decade for this kind of schedule to kind of complete. I'm not sure the exact details myself, but I can obviously send you all the information to read up in their white paper. So yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of thought gone into this. It blows me away that people would invest that energy into this. It's great.
So that basically would mean that if you hold an NFT and if you hold Discoins, then you could provide, as it increases, liquidity to the DEXs without losing out, but at the same time maybe getting a share of the trading volume.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly obviously how it works now. I'm the last person anyone should ever ask about how DEXs and liquidity pools and so on. I mean, I've never involved myself into that, mostly because I don't understand it, and a lot of people do much better than myself. But yeah, it increases over time, so just holding those things to provide you with more. They do run a stake pool, which maybe in future they will be some kind of like rewards associated with it, but I believe they would. Yeah, exactly. Where but that's not like involved with like the current emission schedule, and that Discoin would probably have to come from elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, I'm not an authority on that. You know, while I'm a member of obviously the Disco Solaris team, you know, Discoin is something that, you know, we're as much like an observer of as of you know, a layman in the community, which is really exciting. You know,
Guys, if you want to know exactly how this works, without putting Matt on the hot chair, go on the Discord server of Disco Solaris and ask him around. That's your first point to get familiar with the whole community.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, sure. And I mean, and if you come there, you know, I can send you to other places, right? You know, the people who produce Discoin, you know, they have their own Discord server as well. And you know, and they can there's much more like specific, you know, you can discuss it anywhere, but you know, it's quite more tight to certain topics there. And you know, we encourage obviously, you know, parts of the community, if they want to have their own little hubs and or big hubs such as this and discuss more specific things or have a bit more ownership of their aspect to the community, you know, that's completely fine. So yeah, just, you know, reach out and we will point you in any of the right places where you know, you can educate yourselves, because I guess that's what a lot of this stuff is about, right? Is providing information if people want it to learn as much as they want. And I'm mostly just a guide and a voice to kind of help people get to those places, because it's the nature of this kind of project means that it's very hard for any one person to know everything, which is interesting.
Absolutely. You know, if this Disco Solaris needs more SPOs, for example, for future work or for side chains or something like that, or do you know anything like that?
So I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there will be, right? I know the guys who are running Discoin that have strong sights on Midnight. Part of that being one of the heavily involved people. They do have some kind of, I believe, like psychiatric business, and they want to find a way of allowing people to get psychiatric or counseling as kind of help. Maybe, I'm not sure the exact details, in return for Discoin, and then, you know, perhaps that kind of medical information will be used to help train people. And I believe they're looking towards like the Midnight and the privacy chain and so on to help with all that. So I'm sure there's like, you know, the future like SPOs and so on will be very much needed. I know there was another one within the community ran by Calvin, notable for my ADA handle on SundaySwap, called the Brew Club, and this is a stake pool funded creative engine, I believe they call it, where effectively you sign up to, you know, the stake pool as if you would like a subscription service, and that is your kind of like enter into their world where, you know, they have like really high quality stories with audio narration and music and art all done custom made, and so, you know, you're like subscribing to this kind of media service through your stake pool kind of choice.
Yeah,
and then that
idea sometimes, where you use the stake actually to gain a certain subscription level.
You know, there's different levels within it. You know, just having just through like the kind of partnership we got, and just through having a Disco, you in your wallet, you would access like their most basic level. But then if you kind of you stake to certain tiers, then you may gain, you know, extra sneak peeks on things or bits of snippets of lore, or, you know, audio narration and so on. So and that is really cool. Like I've spoken a lot to Calvin, and I really, you know, value that, you know, that narrative art and the story, and I think, you know, more creative ways in which people can, you know, fund these I guess endeavors, you know, it's something that blockchain allows. And you know, I've not seen more of. I'm sure there's other stuff out there like that, but you know, funding creatives is something which the world hasn't always been the best at, and Web3 is helping to change that in ways which I'm supportive of.
See that in almost every Discord server, you see like so many creatives running around and doing really awesome stuff. And I've seen one in, it's the Midnight Bazaar, is it that? Yeah.
Yeah.
where there was like a question, hey, could you create a GIF for me with doing just crazy stuff, and within a couple of hours there was a suggestion, and that was made. It was a really funny one, right? So
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah, and it is cool. I mean, that's one of the things they do, that is like a big part of like the kind of ethos of the Discoin is these kind of bounties where people may just like, oh, need a service, and it's done. And because like there's so many different like skilled people in the Disco Solaris community, whether it be creatives, artists, writers, and musicians. There's tons of developers, people who can just like whip up a GIF or a meme or a video, and within minutes of seeing their request, right? These are all things which are really useful, and it's cool to see these all come together. It's like, where are all these creative people? And apparently they're just all hiding in Discord.
maybe it's just like the people that live next to the builder.
Yeah,
How do you find him?
yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
how do you find the builder? Do you just write builder at builder, or how does it work? Like how?
Yeah, I mean, we need like a bat signal for him, I think, but he's always around in some way, and you know, um, I'm pretty sure on Twitter he's just, if you see the builder Disco Solaris, I can't remember exactly what his handle is, or in Discord he's just literally called the builder, or the builder of Mobius 9, and he's amazing. Like, people, I mean, he's also another person where, like, most of the kind of, if you go on like the GIF searches and type in Disco Solaris, he's made most of them himself, right? So he's this like crazy machine who just learns things. I believe in like another life he was like an engineer or something. And that, but he's also like, he can make GIFs, he can make these like virtual like spaces to hang out with. He's also got a Twitter account which is called Disco Insider, and he makes like a weekly newspaper that catalogs all the events going on within the Disco Solaris community. And this is all just one guy, and I think, there's so many things that we can say of him, and that's why we just call him the builder.
Sounds like epic. Really,
Yeah.
really cool. Seems like he has deserved it a lot.
Oh, he's amazing.
One of my last questions. Do you know if um is is Disco? No, I'm just saying Disco Solaris. Is it trying to stay on Cardano? Is it trying to expand or building bridges over different chains, projects? Do you know that? Can you say anything about that?
So currently, most things are only planned from Cardano. Much of what we're doing with other chains is more been like, I guess, like collaborations and trying to find like artists or people we can work with for other chains. For example, there's amazing project on Ethereum called The Fringe, and they're filmmakers looking to make independent films, where they kind of create a universe like us, and then, but because they come from a film background, use that to help fund and create movies within that universe. And whenever we've interacted with them, it's just been so special that it's something that we keep coming back to, right? Like, even if it's just like hosting AMAs or Twitter Spaces or sharing ideas, this is so great. We also like have worked with artists that we've maybe traditionally only been on Ethereum, and one of our now team members, Karibe, she was an Ethereum artist and just had incredible stuff, and we reached out with her and kind of fell in love, and we had a custom piece made that was auctioned, and then through the kind of enthusiasm of the Disco Solaris community, and she seemingly fell in love with what we do, and now she is on board with us as a team member, and we'll be looking to do very special things with her, right? So I'd say, when we look to produce stuff, it will most likely be on Cardano, but we're always looking elsewhere, whether it be for inspiration or whether or not we can work with other people, and so on. But the nature of it all means that if someone in the Disco Solaris community wanted to make something in the universe and produce it on another blockchain, like that would completely be fine, right? I believe there are people in the community who are looking to make ties with people on Algorand, maybe, you know, that specifically makes sense because of the strong ties between, you know, Cardano, or maybe it's Ergo. Apologies. Anyway,
Ergo
yeah, sorry, but
Algorand is
yeah,
also something
I
that
think
is,
it may be, Ergo. There may be certain things about Ergo, but anyway, but that's beside
I
the point. Is
remember
more like, you know,
saying, I remember Charles saying something about Algorand. I think
yeah,
he likes,
but
he admires the project itself really much.
yes,
Thanks a
but
lot.
you know that there's people in the community looking to build things, you know, with the kind of links to across bridges maybe and so on. And if they want to, that's completely fine. And I'm you know, I'm sure that we will see, you know, community endeavors on other blockchains. Obviously, as a team ourselves, you know, we're focused on Cardano for things we produce, but you know, who knows what happens in the future, right? You know, I'm a believer that kind of like cross-chain things is the future more, even though,
Yeah,
you know, I love
absolutely.
Cardano, right? Like, you know, the tools and applications and so on, like you know, it's hard to say that you will only ever use one of them, right? And I think the more interoperability that comes along, the more these horizons open up.
Absolutely. Totally. Absolutely awesome. Oh, and the Silk Toad. What is that? What
Oh
is
yeah, so so the Silk Toad is kind of you know, that is also related to the producers of Discoin, and that is kind of the evolution of what you referred to as the Midnight Bazaar.
Mhm.
So originally, you know, there is this marketplace being developed related to Discoin, and that was going to be the Midnight Bazaar, but I believe as the kind of discussions around it have become, you know, they wanted to be more of a hub rather than just a market, and it would be a social space and maybe a place that the radio station may integrate into, and so on, and certain other aspects. They wanted to have maybe a more encompassing in name, but this is something that is quite like a new concept and something that I'm still trying to learn as much about myself. But effectively, a community-made hub of developers and so on within the community to, you know, provide services for the community is probably the best way I could describe it as far as my knowledge so far.
So, but the Silk Toad is not the Midnight Bazaar. And that's, I just have to ask because I didn't understand it properly because of my language barrier. As you know, it's not, English is not my first language, so
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it is. There's a kind of confusing element to it at the moment. So the Midnight Bazaar is the name of the server, which the community kind of has separate from us, Disco Solaris, which is ran by the people who developed Discoin and so on. But you know, there's a lot of aspects to it. And then the Silk Toad will be a platform produced by those same people, which will have a marketplace and some other aspects.
Okay, so you could say the Midnight Bazaar is the social part of it, and the Silk Toad is kind of the go-to marketplace then to basically literally sell the goods and services that could be created.
Yeah, perhaps something like that. You know, I'm still learning as much as anyone else sometimes with these things, so I don't want
Leaning
to
to the
kind of
Silk Road, obviously, right?
yeah, perhaps it was Grancho, I believe, that came up with that in a brainstorming session. Yeah, and so when like I think one of the first aspects of it will be that when it launches, the Discoin claims will move from Toasty Drop over to the Silk Toad, and then I imagine from there, you know, more aspects will be built on top of it.
Cool. So it's a lot to expect there. And
Oh my god, yeah, so much.
yeah, I see that. I mean, I've prepared those questions, and you ran through them and explaining like a whole universe within less than an hour if we move away the chit chat. So
Yeah, I mean, if you need, we can be here another 5 hours or so, and I'm sure we'd not run out of things even close to speak about.
it's really really good. So the last question that I have is, we from a perspective of founder, like many of us are. I said, okay, I already can see the storylines of multiverse um, projections within Disco Solaris. And you could create a new foundation for movie scripts. And you could, for me, that's mostly the important one for me, extrapolate project organs. And then you can find the creatives. But businesses targeting communities like Disco Solaris want to gain reach. And we're still early and plus 12,000 users, and Discord is a big number. To me, it is. And however, compared to traditional media, as you already pointed out, it's still little. What are your intents here? And is this leading to the development of an additional branch? I mean, we have seen the midnight market in Silk Toad, but is there some extra intentions, or do you say the organic development or evolvement that we can see now will probably sort it out by themselves because it's just a fluid and organic evolvement. It's an evolution, and people will figure out by themselves.
I think it has to be both. I think the organic aspect of it will, in a sense, take care of itself, and I'm a strong believer in the network effect, especially for something like this where people like yourself or other people may have learned about us and what we do and be brought in through like a word of mouth or through like friends and colleagues and so on. But then there does need to be more of that, and there will be. It's just like kind of having to focus resources and learn and iterate and so on. So that there will be more to come. And I think right now, that kind of organic approach does make the most sense where we are, in the state of like, the infancy of like Web3 things such as NFTs and elements of blockchain and so on. And I think while we will definitely look to expand, one of our focuses is looking at how can we make ourselves more of like a brand on something like Instagram, where there's kind of more of that like organic reach, is definitely kind of a focus and like kind of wish for us to push out in that way. But I also do believe where we are right now, the being kind of in blockchain NFTs and so on, it is kind of a tight-knit thing, and that just allows us to build up like a really solid foundation for the future and help find the right people to move forward with.
That could be a potential service to use for something like an Instagram, decentralized Instagram.
Yeah, I mean it's really exciting to see what's to come, and we've seen is it Mastodon, the kind of Twitter one, and I'm sure we'll see something of other kind of avenues, maybe more like the image based and so on with Instagram. I'm still like a bit unsure about, like, for me, for example, I tried to involve with like Mastodon, and it just seemed a bit like the barrier of entry to like actually use it was a bit too high. I was like, oh, what if I wanted to make like like a Cardano NFTs Mastodon, and then it was like, oh well, like you kind of have to have the like technology in-house to set up a server, or you have to spend loads of money every month to kind of get one, and I'm sure there is some maybe if you harness more like blockchain tech, then it would mean there's the kind of the technological and financial and like impacts on like individual unit users aren't as heavy, but I feel like I'm definitely speaking about something that is beyond my kind of capacity to understand enough, so I'll probably leave it at that.
Yeah, I never made it into Mastodon yet. I mean, I think it's been found in Germany, so relation would be pretty close, and I think it's been around for a while. And if I'm not mistaken, I've seen it first time in 18 or 19 or so. I think it must be earlier, but I never really made my way into it. So I totally feel you. You're not alone with that one.
Yeah, it's, and I mean, like there's definitely like problems with the socials that we all like know and probably don't love. But you know, the kind of strength of them is their reach and the users they already have and so on. So I do think it will take a lot to kind of breach those into something which is usable, because like the value of social media is like how many people use it, right? And that's why making new ones is so hard. I mean, not even Google could successfully launch their own social media when they tried, so it's a difficult one, but I'm hopeful we'll get something more suited to Web3 people.
Yeah. However, I mean, I think like having YouTube and other of those services, they do their job well, and they have to get financed. And with what we do, or what Web3 is trying to accomplish, you have to pay for those things. I mean, I've just, I think it was yesterday, I've just heard a very good explanation of it. Is you used to be using credit cards, and the banks have been, and the other service providers have been paying for the fees, or the merchants have been paying for the fees. And now with Web3 or with crypto, we as a user have to pay the fees, and they're sometimes higher and sometimes lower. And I think it's the trade-off, whom you want to pay, and then it's up to and I think it's open to where our space evolves with how our data is getting marketed, because at a certain point, I mean, everything is open and everything can be observed. So the question is, how will some smart brains start digging into those data, and then potentially market to the wallet addresses somehow? I don't know. There will be somebody who's really smart.
Yeah, I mean, there are elements of things that could be done, right? But I think a lot of it is like, you know, trying new things is exciting, but also you kind of want to respect people as well. You know, for example, like wallet addresses are out there in public, and you could, I guess, advertise by spending the money to airdrop something to them. But then, you know, if that happened to me, like, I don't know if I would be very accepting of that, you know. In the methods that we do have, like, you know, if everyone had like for example, like a Cardano messaging system, like almost like an email, right? I think that would feel a bit nicer. But currently, what you'd probably have to send them a token, and that feels a bit too, I don't know, like maybe personal or over the top. Like they've almost like breached your wallet, and now you have to, like, you know, maybe send it away to remove it. So, but you know, I'm sure there's people who are very bright thinking of interesting solutions to things like that.
Yeah, but I think you could give it time, and people will, there will be always those people that are aware of privacy where but I had one of those friends who literally said, I don't have anything to hide. And he's an IT. He's from IT. He said, I don't have anything to hide. I can give all my data to Google or Facebook. Doesn't matter. And so I think the majority, in the end, they don't read the privacy terms, and they don't care. They just say yes, and our space will evolve into that as well. But hey, a whole different
yeah, if we go down there, we'll be there for another hour, won't we? So.
Yeah. We're going to wrap that one up here. Thank you so much. And we're going to drop the links down below.